Good morning and welcome to another episode of When Pigs Fly. I am Patty and I'm joined by Renee and Tracy this morning. And we have a special guest, a very special guest, John Burgos. And for those of you who don't know who John Burgos is, you've been missing out, but I'm going to share a little about John and then we're going to get things going. So, John is an ascension guide and internationally recognized public speaker who thrives when collaborating with provocative spiritual leaders, bringing light to the shared power of the awakened collective consciousness. He's passionate about cultivating leading edge communities that empower the rising of consciousness. John created the Beyond the Ordinary show, which quickly grew into an interactive community for those seeking ancient wisdom, the next generation of mystical teachings, spiritual awakening, and ascension guidance with a pragmatic and coherent delivery. Having been initiated into connecting with higher states of awareness and realms beyond the physical, John's call quickly became to be of service. And he's here to bring you back to your soul's wisdom, bringing light to information kept in the dark. And John, welcome to our provocative playground.
I love that. Yes, building communities on the fringe like that. It's so great to be in this community. It feels like home.
Yeah, and you've got such a beautiful community, and all of us can attest to that. And we want to dig in a little too, and tell us a little bit about Beyond the Ordinary show, and maybe what led to you, what provoked you to start it.
Again, I was gaining access to a vocabulary and to people and to frameworks of thinking and connections that just weren't talked about in my communities and the suburbs that I lived in, even in my family. And if it was spoken about in a very kind of weird, very far out there, esoteric kind of way. And it's so weird. Um, but when I stepped in and I started becoming aware of what was available, but not just becoming aware, really having relationship and utilizing the tools, knowing how to deepen an intimacy with that knowledge and that wisdom and that love, really, that was showing up, my life started to shift. And it was wonderful. Yes, I had guides coming in. My energy was shifting. I started seeing auras around people and animals and trees, and it was amazing. I always had a very psychic attunement. I didn't know what to do with it and didn't know how to make sense of it. But when that started occurring, that was like those byproducts were amazing. It's like, wow, it's like being on a psychedelic trip without having to take any drugs. Um, and I knew that I was growing from it tremendously and that I was shedding a lot of trauma and limiting beliefs that I grew up with. Either they were entrained or they were there because of some type of soul loss experience because someone didn't treat me in a way that I should have been treated in dignity, or because I witnessed someone else not holding themselves in their highest lights and the trauma that that causes, whether we call it through alcoholism, physical abuse, through experiencing war. Again, it's where the light is denied. Um, when I started having the experiences of these new realms and starting inviting them into my life, my relationships with the people that I was intimate with in my life, my children, my relationship to money, my relationship to my health, my relationship to how I walk in this earth plane, all completely shifted. And I found the sense of true self rather than walking in a way where I'm trying to figure out where I fit in, or I'm trying so hard to like be just part of something so I don't have to feel so alone or like such an outcast or misunderstood. Um, and don't get me wrong, I still feel that from time to time, but it comes now from a place of integrity within myself rather than trying to fit somebody else's reality so that I can fit in. Um, and when that started happening, I knew that I had to start sharing that with as many people as possible. And that's what inspired Beyond the Ordinary. I could have gone into coaching and offering sessions or doing other things individually, but for me, it's like, what's really fun for me? And that's collaborating with other people and I like to think big. So if I collaborate with other people, I have an idea of what I can do by myself, but if I'm collaborating with other people who are as excited about this as I am, and they're teaching it in a way that's really empowering for other people, it's possible. And that's how Beyond the Ordinary started. I wanted to interview and be in collaboration and offer tools that I wasn't even aware of
Yeah.
for communities so that they can start having at least a glimpse, if not a wave of the type of experiences that were shifting my life so beautifully and dramatically.
I love that. Can I tell you, for me personally, Beyond the Ordinary show is my search engine for ascension and higher consciousness.
I
Hands
love that.
down,
Mm.
hands down. And so, Renee, do you want to jump in
Yeah.
here?
That's same for me, John. Like I go to your show for everything. Like I'm like, oh my God, am I just going crazy because things are happening and am I the only one to talk about? Because sometimes people will say to me, well, where can I find this information that you're saying? I'm like, I don't know. Like it's just coming into me. And I'm like, you know what? Check out Beyond the Ordinary. I bet you people out there talking about it. If not, John's membership, he'll probably be talking about it.
Oh, amazing. I so appreciate that. And it's something that like I've been doing Beyond the Ordinary for 11 years now. Time's flown. I thought I was going to do it for 6 months. It's been 11 years. I thought it was a stepping stone into something else in the collaboration. But the caveat for Beyond the Ordinary has always been really bringing experts that are of the highest integrity.
Yes.
I mean, really of the highest integrity. And I think I'm batting about 900 with that.
Or higher.
Right.
It's true.
Or about 900 with it.
Yeah.
Well, over the years, it's like I would dabble in kinds of, well, this speaker could bring a bigger audience, or the speaker's going to make a lot of money for this show. It's like, well, okay, we'll give it a try. And it would tank every time,
Yeah.
which I loved because, again, that for me was the alignment piece. And I learned quickly. I didn't try to force it. And so for you all to say that it's been a resource for you in that way makes me so happy because, again, it comes from this place of such deep integrity of knowing what I have the opportunity to steward on a platform and how we can influence a collective. And it's from my calculations from what I hear over and over again, the waves and the ripples that that platform has created for people on their ascension and awakening journey has been so much bigger than whatever I could have imagined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a whoopee
Well,
blanket. It's a whoopee blanket.
I know I have people calling me, telling me that I fall asleep to your podcast all the time. It's like, hopefully not while you're listening in the middle of the day, but it's funny.
Tracy, you look like you want to say something.
Well, I just wanted to join in on the accolades. Again, John, thank you. I'm sure you get that all the time. But when I started to get a lot of messaging and downloads, I had a friend that say you had to check out this show, which is where it's so great to have a resource. And that was a couple years ago. But you hit on such a great factor that I think is very relevant nowadays of the integrity piece, because I didn't realize how much there was out there of resources, but now it's almost too much is not good, because I just said to the girls this morning, if I ever miss someone great on John's show, tell me, because it's so nice to have to recommend to other people. And then also for yourself, if I know John is hosting someone, it's probably got some really good juice behind it. And it's probably something that's really going to resonate with me, which is, I think the further we go down in our days, I think that's more valuable because more people are kind of catching on to this language and this realm of possibility, which unfortunately can open the door to, like you said, people just trying to make money, just trying to, get an audience. So I'm just reiterating what everyone else said, that I think that's amazing of you and what you do.
I appreciate that. Well, it's funny that we talked about the people who are speaking language. When I started, I'd say my awakening path, like when the dam broke open, was probably about 15, 17 years ago. But during that time, I didn't know what a chakra was. Don't even talk to me about galactic beings and the Andromedans and the Lyrans and what's this Kundalini thing that you're talking about, and which archangels. I've heard of Archangel Michael. It's like, okay, and I've seen that movie, but it wasn't part of my world. So attuning to ascension, what, we're going up an elevator? Yeah, kinda. Um, but the vernacular, the words that are used in the community, took me a little while to adjust to and to understand them. But the important part of it was that there was an energy really that was working that I've gotten to know so much better over the years. And I understand as we use these words and we have these phrases that they're also an invitation for us to attune to something in our intelligence that we just haven't had access to before, but that's opening up gateways of potentiality of not only how we relate to ourselves and to our world, but how we can relate to so many other worlds that are actually available to us, but we just didn't have those pinpricks of light to guide us where that information was shining through.
Absolutely. I love that because you're right. Like we're not, and I have to always reiterate to my clients in that, like, ask for help. There's all these beautiful beings that are there and this light shining through. And I'm sure you've seen it like through the years of how everything has shifted from when you first started to now. Like, how, everything is how you're navigating through that. And that's what I always love, about you and your show. You're always on that cutting edge. You're always bringing the relevance, speakers and even yourself and what you're speaking about and what's happening in the now, not reiterating all of the old stuff. And I think that's really important. And it just goes to, the credibility of you and staying with the whole energy aspect. And that's what we all have to do.
Well, I can tell you it was very selfish to keep doing that. And in all transparency, and I'm sure y'all can relate, I just got bored with the conversations. Like, there's got to be something else. And I'd ask my guys, it's like, if I'm supposed to keep doing this, you need to bring me new speakers that are bringing new information. We call this beyond the ordinary for a reason, because it's like and there's so many of us who work at very quick paces. It's like, let's keep moving on. And I mean, there's been speakers who've been on the show for the full 11 years, and they're constantly shifting and growing and expanding and sharing from that place. And then there's some that they're teaching their wheelhouse and they're in that wheelhouse, and it's beautiful because it gives access to different people in different ways. There's no right or wrong, but for me that advancement, that navigating to those higher octaves of possibility is what drove me. And it's thank goodness, because I think I would just shrivel up if I had to keep doing the same thing over and over again. It's just, it's not in my constitution.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that's a big draw for me, John, because I love to drink from a fire hose.
Yeah, nice.
I do.
Yeah,
And then, through that, you sort it out. And sometimes I'll watch because, oh, this could help a client. Like, okay,
yeah.
I've been through this process, but wow, this is a new approach that could help someone. And, sometimes a specific person even pops into your head and you go, okay, this is perfect. Go watch this replay and catch up on it. So, yeah, and that's kind of what the intention behind us doing this podcast was, that let's keep it organic and share our journey. So take what resonates, throw the rest out. And very early on, we were hearing, oh, a little bit of what you said and a little bit of what you said really connected with me. And yeah, and it's keeping it fresh and spicy and what's new. And I love hearing that you went through that, learning the language too, right? I remember the first time someone sent me to YouTube to watch somebody was channeling. And the person that sent me there, I called him up and I was like, dude, what is wrong with you? What is this you sent me to? I was flipping out. Months later, I was like subscribing to that channel going, oh, okay. And now it's very common to say, oh, hi, who do you channel?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So that was that growth, but having that resource and a place to go and a sense of community and hearing, can you speak to a little bit? One of the things that I love is your audience is growing, like grows with you in such a beautiful way, and the way you support them. I got chills even just talking about it right now, because they'll come in and ask a question, and you find the question that they really want to ask and help them, and you facilitate it in such a beautiful way. Can you
Um,
speak to some of that? Because that is really so meaningful. And this is why we encourage people in our community. Hey, write in and ask us questions. Tell us what's landing so that we can help facilitate and kind of give you a little more.
yeah, it's fun for me. I don't show up for the interviews in a very static type of way. It's like, this is what I'm doing. I'm being interviewing the experts, all this. It's really, for me, it winds up being a collaboration, not intentionally. It's because it's a conversation. We're being real with what's there. With some speakers like Renee, who's been on multiple times, I can just sit back and Renee, you take it. And it's just go, 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 go. And we may like interject and kind of like, well, what do you think of this? How about this other thing and all that? But it's sometimes my job is, and I can't even call it a job. Sometimes the way I get to show up is just so easy and relaxed when someone like Renee's on, because she's so tuned in and just all this. And sometimes I'll have speakers, they'll see a particular spectrum when someone's calling in, and they'll guide in a particular way. But I'll notice like, wait, there's like an opening still there that I don't want to leave the caller just hanging. Um, they ask this deep question. It's very personal, very sensitive, or um, there's something about their spirituality that I have so much reverence for. So I don't want to leave it just in the loop unless it feels right to be left in the loop, which happens sometimes. Um, and so we'll ask. I have, for some reason, this ability to tap into potentials and to kind of pick out what's there. It's like, oh, how can we ignite that potential by just talking about this one thing? So it becomes this weaving and co-creation where there's a feeling where the heart, at the very least, is received. And from that, the mind can be received with good reason. There's transformation that happens just on a 2-minute caller question. But what's also amazing is that on each of the interviews, like again with Renee, if Renee's on, that we get to have the live Q&A. We get to drop in, okay, what's happening in the energetic field? What are you feeling? What's happening with our limitations? Why am I picking up these fears from the collective? Why are my guides trying to tell me all those things that we talk about? But then there's an opportunity to go deeper with the speaker who's on. And it's in that deepening that so much meeting takes place and transformation becomes available, and that the light really gets to be illuminated, because that intimacy with the speaker who doesn't hold a place of judgment, who's really in their integrity, and the vulnerability and the openness of a client, as much as they're willing to show up in for those sessions afterwards, again, the ripple effects of transformation just become profound. And in that, we're doing our work of living in this beautiful world that we've been gifted to the fullest expression of its beauty in which it's offered in. And from that receptivity, then we can help to be of service to the collective. It doesn't work the other way around for me. It can in fragments, and we can burst it. But when you fill your cup up first and you get to know yourself from that place, and you don't judge yourself from the old places you judge yourself in, when you're awakened within the truth of the beauty of yourself, you can't help but to be a spreader of that beauty.
Yeah, so true. We echo that big time. We
Yeah.
we love. Well, let's jump into some. I see Renee smiling. Let's jump into the energetics recently. Like, woo, lots of purging, lots of new illumination coming in. It's right, crazy and fun, and why we're on Mr. Toad's wild ride right now.
Oh, well, the three of you can all lead your own call on this, because I know that you all are tuned in and tapped in. From my perspective, there's such an immense quickening. We can say it's shifting and the density's coming up and not, yeah, But I think the speed in which we're accelerating is bringing all this up. And if we really address the speed, the density that has to come up to the froth just organically does. And so we're attuning to our body. We can be aware of these other things as they're arising within ourselves. We can be compassionate and empathic about what we see happening outside of us, but the energies are really asking us to be aware of the sovereignty within ourselves and our connection to the divine, in our connection to the truth of who we are.
And
Unity consciousness. And in the exploration or in the journey towards that, whatever is in alignment with that has to come up, has to be reconciled. It's a natural occurrence. And so with that awareness, if we can see and focus, and we're being asked to do this more and more, to see everything in its beauty and its light, rather than judging for where it's wrong. Yeah. That's where the energies are guiding us right now. There's no mistaking it. We can interpret it in a lot of different ways, but at the root of it, that's exactly what I say. Renee, you were going to say something.
no, yeah, I agree. It is. It's such a thing. But what I was thinking about was for the listeners and all that, because you had mentioned it earlier as well. When these things are coming up and we're sort of getting stuck in them, because I think some people think that we're in the forefront and oh my God, they, their life is all, wonderful and they just know how to do everything, and we don't. We get stuck in the same things. And I just wondered, when things come up for you, for your perspective, how are you showing up to get rid of them, and all of these old things come up, or just like little remnants of things coming forward that really sort of pull us out of this sovereignty and where we're really going, this true oneness? How do you deal with that?
There's lots of different things that help tremendously, and it varies according to what's coming up and how I am in that particular day or that particular period, as to what aligns. One of my favorite things to do is to reach out to someone like you, Renee, or some of my other friends have been on the show. Is like, hey, help me process this or what's coming up and help me get some clarity, or even bring alignment into this imbalance that I'm feeling within myself. So reaching out to someone that can support, having a mentor or someone that you work with, it's key, because we're all walking each other back home. None of us are doing this solo. None of us. It's when I get triggered in a particular way, it's being aware. It's like, wow, I'm triggered. It's like, oh, I'm in this triggered space, or I'm in this fear place, or I'm this in contracted place. And just feeling it and allowing the truth of that truth to run through me first. Is like, let me be with this. Because a lot of us have been taught, if we're in a triggered place, let's avoid it and let's try to go into something else, or make ourselves wrong, or make other people wrong for that trigger.
Yeah.
There's
No,
always the outside influence that we're trying to place it on, because that's what we've been taught.
Yeah, hold the beach ball underwater. Good luck.
Yeah. And so it's like, oh, okay, there it is. And then just be with it. So fear's here. It's like, wow, fear's here. Doesn't feel so great, but we don't get rid of fear. We don't get rid of trauma. We don't get rid of ego. We don't push it away. We don't clear it in a way that it's clearing us. Maybe we cleared the density of the energetic charge that it carries, but we integrate it. It all comes up with us. We're not leaving any part of ourselves behind. That's what unity consciousness is. So again, being present and just, here I am, and breathing into knowing that we're having a nervous system response a lot of times, because again, the body and the mind want to run in a particular direction, fight or flight, and having compassion and teaching your body and your mind to attune, to give it time. Because again, we live in everything where everything comes in 15-second spurts and entertains us. And welcome to, YouTube stories and everything else. It's just an indication of where our minds are. So again, just slowing down enough and to acknowledge, to take responsibility as part of the spiritual maturity that we're navigating through in these times as well. And make no mistake about it, there's a new level of maturity in our consciousness that we're all being called to, all of us.
Yeah.
We're beyond the 2-3-year-old tantrum of consciousness that we were living in. Some people want to call that patriarchy, the old world, whatever it was. Let me throw and kick and scream, and whoever throws and kicks and screams the hardest gets the attention, gets the money, gets the power. And so we're shifting from that. Another important thing is to learning how to work with the elements to come into balance. And even ritual and ceremony is so important. So I'll have a glass of water that I'll pray into in the evenings sometimes and put my intentions into it. If I have desires for creation, I'll work with the fire, with the elements of fire, and I'll put those intentions underneath a candle and let it burn for it to be received in other places. After a few days, I'll burn it so that elements of air will come in, and I'll notice where each one of those, where my body is in attunement to that particular ceremony. Am I being present with the water? And is the water holding me? Am I trying to hold on to the water, or can I let go of that prayer? Because you can't hold on to water. And so it's a fluid thing. Whatever's gifted to us is fluid. It's not meant to be stagnant for accumulation in this space. So again, the prayer, letting go of the prayer in that way. The writing the intention, the grounding the intention, lighting it, but putting under the fire to give it that kinesthetic energy, to burn it, to bring it alive, for it to be received. And having the prayer of that with the aware that we're lighting something up. That's also the sacral chakra coming alive, right? Through that fire element. Then burning it after a few days. And letting the air take it. And as I burn it, where's my mind? Is my mind going in 100 different directions? Is the air trying to take my mind? Or wait, let me be with the intention. Let me focus and be present with the air element in this particular prayer. And allowing those elements in that ceremony to guide, and then connecting outside with nature. Everybody says connect with nature. Yes, ground into nature, but I want you to be extremely intentional as you're walking. And if you can walk barefoot in nature, even better. And take your 5-10 minute walk and really commune with her. If your mind starts going into, I'm creating this, or I'm doing this other thing, or I've got this grocery list, or I'm taking care of this other person, or this, just come back. It's like, no, this is my time to be in communion with nature. Not only what I'm receiving, but nature, but what am I gifting to nature in my consciousness right now? Yeah. And showing up in reverence to that as well. And when we do those things, we find that balance starts happening in our life more often. We don't get as thrown off because we're finding that balance within ourselves. We're not looking for outside influences, whether it's your beloved, your work, again, social media, whatever it is, that gives us a validation for being received. That those become more a factor of how we're showing up in presence for ourselves, rather than something that we're trying to feed off so that we can feel good about ourselves. Again, to validate that we're loved, that we belong, that we can exist. So those are some practices that I use.
I love those. Those are amazing. I'm talking about great things for the listeners to do, and I'm certainly going to start putting some of those into effect. So thank you.
Renee's like, we get to burn stuff. Yay.
I know.
Yes.
Let's burn some stuff.
John, have you studied? That was a lot of neo-shamanic. I love the elements in that neo-shamanic or the shamanic kind of. Do you have any teachings or anything in the background? I know you've done some ceremonies, but
I've done quite a bit of ceremonies, yeah. And so,
okay.
well, what's so beautiful about where I get to show up in so many different ways is I get to experience a lot of different avenues to discover realms of spirituality. The shamanic realms are something that have been very innate with me. I know I've carried it in lifetimes. I've had visions without being on any type of under anything that would influence me other than breath, and not even a breathing practice, but just breathing, where information would come through from those realms that were quite altering. But I have been with influences from indigenous tribes in Peru and Brazil, Mayan elders who have also shared some of these things to work with as well. My partner, Courtney, she's very much into priestess and ceremonial work in the most beautiful way, really impressive. And so all that's definitely influenced some of the practices that I get to work with and that I get to share.
And I'm curious because I've noticed that nature is really responding really well lately. Like it's almost as if nature's hearing us and really opening up a flow of information and intelligence. Have you noticed the same thing? Like it's just so much more amplified and powerful in the past few weeks, months, even.
There is a lot that's coming. It's like a light's been lit up under her somehow. But I'm curious if y'all are feeling that there's a light being lit up under you as well, because I've certainly have. There's like a new type of creativity, a quickening. I've gone through a period where I cannot slow down. There's so much work that I gotta get done in these creative inspirations, and also feeling the effects of some planetary influences, solar flares that have been hitting us over the last week that were just kind of knocking me out simultaneously. So it's Earth is speaking big time to answer your question to me as well. And in working with the Earth realm, I've also been working in guiding people through rituals with the plants in different ways. And the plant kingdom is just, wow, what is showing up through those journeys. It's so impressive. It's so impressive, the relationship that we have with them. And we're able, or Gaia or Earth or nature is able to have that expedited or exponential or bigger experience with us because of the work that we've done, how we all are accelerating on this planet in different ways. So I feel that the veil between the realities that we've perceived that we've been living and our relationship with other intelligences is becoming extremely thin.
Yes.
And we're accessing that much more potently and much more clearly than we ever could before. And so having experiences of my grandfather or my dad who passed away coming in and sitting right next to me is not something that's out of the realm. It's like, oh, that makes sense now. Mother Nature talking to us, I have to go to jump in that river even though it's 20 degrees outside. It's like, all right, I'm doing it. Spirit guides, animal guides coming in and communicating with us, the dream interpretation, like there's so much that we're tuning into in ways that we couldn't before.
Yeah, it wasn't available before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just weren't there.
Yeah.
We just weren't there. Somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
No, I was just gonna say somewhere. Some are really wired and in tune that way and the gifts, but this is becoming much more common. Yeah.
And I think as everybody's awakened in what I've seen, and I think we've talked about this probably off camera, ladies, is how we are making these changes and now it's moving around the world because we're connecting into the energy fields of the same people that have this similar energy to us. So as we change that, what I'm watching is it moving around the entire world and then raising the kind of, like you see this, I want to say like heavier cloud type thing, like move out. And when I say, what is it? And they're like, that's the consciousness. That's the overall consciousness. So as we're all shifting and changing people around the world, it's lifting the consciousness, which then I'm seeing the light come up, even stronger and these beautiful colors coming with it. And not only coming up within, but then there's this other energetic field coming in this way and then coming down. It's almost like we're being sandwiched in and saying, listen, you have to wake up because it's all going to come at one particular point. And what are you going to do? You don't want to be at the shit show. You want to be here. And, I don't know if you've been feeling that, like coming at all different ways. And it's really forcing us to really wake up and get out of the old and move into the new.
Yeah. And I can say it's really easy. But what's also occurring is that it's easy because we get to choose. And there's no wrong choice. It's just which road are you going to take to get to that place that we're all going. And don't judge others on their journey and make them wrong. You can have discernment. And that's beautiful because that is your sovereign standard for how you choose to experience this life. It's I love it. Paul Selig, he channels a Melchizedek energy, and it's so in line with him, but it's part of his channeling, and they say it over and over again. Whatever you damn damns you.
Yeah.
Whatever you condemn condemns you.
Yeah.
Fear's only job is to create more fear. And I would say that there's never been a war that's ever ended a war. That includes the internal wars that we create within ourselves. So we can live, if this resonates for you, with those innate truths, then what are you going to choose? I think the choice becomes really simple when we know these things as being true. And I love the way that you describe the energy and the clouds and the colors coming through and the light pushing it through. And then there we are. What are you going to choose?
Well, also, and I'd like to know your opinion on this, John, is I was shown an image once of we are all these divine diamond essence, our crystalline structure, our light body. There's so many terms. And one night my body just hurt everywhere. And I kind of got the message of, well, yeah, look up how a diamond's created. All the pressure. And Renee, you almost kind of just did it. Like we were being refined and refined and refined. So we can let this beautiful essence, our divine essence, shine forth. So I love that analogy, even if it comes with a little bit of pressure, right? Releasing the density, looking at some things that we're no longer in alignment with. But I'm curious if you, the actual physical bodies, what you're seeing happen or what's available for the bodies. And the word transfiguration has been coming to me a lot lately. Now that's different from transformation. And now I don't know if it's just all of a sudden I've noticed, and I think a couple of people on your show, the words revelation and transfiguration. I'm like, gosh, that's coming to me too. What exactly does transfiguration mean?
That's such a great question. I want to address the diamond aspect first, because that pressure is definitely there, and we've all been experiencing it. What I'm aware, though, in that pressure is that when we go through our own healing and our own ascension and an expansion of who we know ourselves to be, that there's points along the way that we want to alleviate somebody else's pressure. that we want to have them bypass where they're suffering, either for their sake or maybe even for our own sake, because it's easier if we don't have to see them suffering. That's another conversation. But in that, we're disallowing that enormous pressure that they need to become the diamond that they're becoming. If we're making them wrong for being in the pressure that they're in, then maybe they're not going to get to that diamond place that they were supposed to get to, because we're trying to hold them in something else because we think it's better. But one diamond in the earth doesn't alleviate the pressure from the coal that creates the other diamond. It's like we can show people by who we are and who we're becoming a pathway of where that pressure can be facilitated in a way that doesn't have to be so crushing necessarily. But we can tell others that they're doing it wrong, or the pressure they're receiving isn't necessary, or be so desperate of trying to relieve them of it. Because the crucial step can be taken out along the way. And we have to know that even that pressure that they're feeling or that we're feeling truly has a purpose. It really is here for us in the greater scheme of things. And we can be just in the awe and curiosity and the innocence of not knowing what it is, but also being in curiosity how it's going to find its way back to the glory that it is. And so the transfiguration part, what does transfiguration mean to you? I'm so curious.
Mine was more that a transformation is changing, going under change, but a transfiguration was really reconfiguring everything, like from a rudimentary foundational point to really like a completely different thing. That's kind of what I got. And then I started to jam out on, I don't know, be a bionic woman. Like, I'm going for the gold on this one. I want to fly. So
I love how you're explaining that, because what comes up for me as you're saying it in this transfiguration, we've been building our lives according to certain structures that have been in place, how we've known them, how we've understood them to be, and how we related to those things. And we're at a point in the shift of the energetics and what's becoming available in consciousness where history can no longer dictate how we build in the future. So there's a transfiguration of the belief systems on which we held them, what we have grasped for, so that we could recreate a similar experience and hope that we have some type of satisfaction, at the very least safety from that recreation. And that doesn't work for us anymore. That history, if you will, that karma has died. We've graduated beyond that. And the transfiguration is we're going into new places of where we're constructing with new materials. We talked about this all last year. Renee, you were such a beautiful part of the conversation last year on the show, where we know that we can't build from the but we don't know how we're building in the future either. It's like this kind of space in between seemed a little precarious, because it was just a big I don't know. I know I can't go that way back. And I don't know how quite to build forward quite just yet, because I can't bring anything from my past in, other really than the wisdom that I've gained along the way, and the love that I've accumulated through my awareness and my capacity to receive and to be it. But other than that, I believe that what we're feeling now, as far as density, as far as lower vibrational fields for a lot of us in these type of communities, are echoes of the history that are lingering, but not the actual illusions of the realities that were the realities that we created from the illusions of history. And so again, these things that are coming up, the the clarity, the new sense of vitality, the expansion of consciousness, the connecting with other realms because the veils are thinning so much. We're building with the new. And again, if we're feeling compression, it's echoes of something probably that we've already released or they're barely hanging on. And that brings me so much joy. I was going to say hope, but hope's not even a thing because I'm in such a place of faith.
Yeah. It's a knowing.
It's beyond knowing and faith.
Yeah.
It's something bigger than my knowing, right?
Yeah. Like,
It's
you're
because you don't
creating.
know.
Yeah. You
It's the
don't,
faith
but
of the unknown.
yeah, but you've cultivated you've cultivated safety in yourself. You've
Yeah,
cultivated your own safety. And we say this a lot on here, throw out the history files. You can't create from your history files anymore. It's done.
I
It's
love that.
already done. And you have, the clean slate, tabula rasa. And so
Mm.
what do you want to paint on there and step into?
Yeah.
Right?
Who throws mud on your painting every once in a while, and then how are you going to make a masterpiece out of that? And that's fine. We go along the way, and it's a great time to be alive. It's really it's amazing. There's focus on different things that are happening around the world, in ways that could dim some of the light where there's so much amazing progress being made. But if I look at history and atrocities that have happened before and economic circumstances and class disparity around the world, that's history. It's history. And we're resolving it. And so if we can really focus on what it is that we want to build with these new materials that we have, and be a force with that, I think we're going to find that the echoes of what we're seeing in the collective won't sustain. It's that it's dying off.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It feels, John, to me, like from my perspective, where I'm already seeing like the benefits of what we're creating, and you see it and you have an experience and a circumstance, and then almost like if someone is around you that's still playing from the history files, that they can still be inspired by us. That's why it's so important for us to maintain our integrity and be aware and just focus on what am I creating now? What am I creating now? Because they're not lost, they can still see it and be inspired by it. And our job, though, is to stand in our power now and then just stay in that creation mode and go, oh, that's just like, it's almost like a commercial of a movie that is, oh, that's a rerun. We've seen that and we're done with that. And we're in our clean creation now in the now moment. And yeah, I agree with you. I'm like, let's have some fun.
Yeah. And
And
that's
John, oh, go ahead.
no, please go ahead.
I was just going to say back to collaboration, conversation, and community, kind of back to you, to everyone out there, for John, it's such a great resource because I think right now the collaboration piece is huge. And to have a community available. Do you know how many friends I have made by watching your show and just done a session and then, wow, I really like Renee. I'm like, I love you. Can I just be your friend?
Yeah.
So it's just amazing that you are in the forefront of an availability to really build with new materials and to create a new way and to make new relationships.
It's so much fun. It's so much fun. And it's guided. I get to be inspired, but it's guided by something that's working with me. I was going to say outside of me, but that's not true either because it's such a beautiful divine co-creation now because we do have the authority of choice. But when you start getting to a place where the nervous system is not the one that's making the decisions, you really tap into, again, a discernment and a wisdom of who and what you're choosing to create within your why. And when that shows up, it's the barriers that we had for those collaborations and creations get removed. Like the barriers around money, the barriers around time, the barriers around access. It's you'll find that slowly or maybe quickly, depending on how it's showing up for you, that which is truly for you just really gracefully manifests because it wants to be gifted to you. Love wants to, there's so much love that is ready to be flooded into your life right now. And the only thing that's preventing it is that we have to titrate it into our being as we learn how to receive, and to eliminate, to have a different relationship, excuse me, with any of those places in ourselves that says, I can't receive because something's going to be taken away. It's got an agenda. It's not safe. I won't be able to take it. It's, or whatever it is that would want to shut down that valve. That's part of what's coming up for near awareness as well. And we're all learning how to titrate the flood of that benevolent energy that's coming towards us. There's not a one of us who isn't attuning to even greater possibility of being that receptive.
I love that.
What I find interesting is, like, even as you were saying that, John, talking to them, showing the energy of the co-creation energy and saying, okay, like everything, exactly what you had said earlier, everything is within us. So as this energy is flowing around and coming in, showing this pressurized energy, trying to come forward and having our, I'll say bodies, and that's really not the right word, our energy else, the energy field within, fighting everything that we've known. Because, what the message I'm getting is that not only is our physical form shifting and changing, and it has to reconfigure itself into the true limitlessness, and that's such a limited word, but the true limitlessness that we are. So as that energy is coming forward, and all of this beautiful energy of what and who and how we can really be, it's coming forward, there is this space in between that is causing this, let's say, imbalance within our body, and that's causing like the pressurized feel and all that stuff. But exactly what you said, when you can have, and you said this much earlier, have that compassion for yourself and that love, you can feel that just sort of melting away, because it automatically brings forth this wisdom, this knowledge of connecting into not only what we have inside, but the overall, or the oneness knowledge base that they say we've placed outside of us, because no, I can't have that kind of power. So it really is this beautiful shift in this awareness, and the wave that's coming in with this, and goes back to what you had said earlier, like ride that wave, do that, and let the whole system just move forward. And that's why and how or what we're really creating exactly what it is we want, because exactly how we've created it before. But we were allowing the ancestral stuff to come forward and sort of direct us. And now everybody's coming into their power, because last year was the year of the power. Everybody regained their power. And now it's like, okay, now what are you going to do with it?
Yeah. And it was ancestral and cultural also. Again, we created culture so that we could learn how to survive as a group. And then we took culture to another level and to another level, and it wound up being it wound up going from survival to control for the sake of survival. And we're releasing all that. But part of the receiving that you were speaking about, Renee, I love as you were talking about that, because it's also reminding me, as I'm in that receptivity and that, again, that like bubble of, I don't know what to do with this right now, or it could be too much or whatever. It's a beautiful thing for us to do is just to sit in stillness.
Yeah.
Don't listen to a meditation. Don't listen to somebody else's voice. It's just you, and just be as still as you can. A great practice also is if you're sitting in, I'll call that a meditation, but it's not a meditation. It's just stillness. But if you're sitting with your palms up and you have a thought that comes in, flip your hand over. Patty, you've probably heard me say this on the shower too. That's a beautiful practice. And that disrupts the mind so that the thought can pass and you can get back to the stillness. And as you're sitting in stillness, as you're breathing, feel your energetic body expanding, because a lot of us hold an energetic body here very contracted. And when we're receiving, we're trying to figure it out and try to attune and allow the earth underneath to hold you where you're sitting, if it's pillow, the couch, the grass, whatever. Melt into it and just feel just how naturally your energetic body just wants to get wider and wider and wider. And it's maybe 3 feet, 2 feet, 10 feet, 100 feet. That's how you, no judging, but just feel how naturally it just flows out like water, just surrounding you. That's your energetic field. And in that relaxed, in that aware state, Patty, you mentioned the word power before. This is where your power emanates from.
Yeah.
You're a generator of energy. That's power.
Yep.
When we relax into that, we become more receptive to congruent energies, because energies meet in alignments. If not, they bounce off of each other. They're not of equal source. And so as you relax into that, you really start attuning into receiving what's truly in alignment for you. It's a source of power in which you're connecting to, we can call it your higher self, your guides. We can call it the intelligence of Gaia. But you realize that all that connection is all happening inside of you, not as a stimulus outside of you. And so there's a translation in that receptivity that allows for a state of peacefulness that engenders the receptivity, because now we're not trying to fight it because we're trying to figure out. Now we're trusting our body instead of not trusting our body to receive because it's too much. And you may find that when you do that, that you'll walk away from that 2 to 10 to 30 minute time of yourself like you just came off of some type of psychedelic journey. Just feeling like you're floating a foot above the ground. And this is, again, you being in your own energy. What you're feeling is the potency of that lifting you up. You're feeling the truth of what's actually happening, because none of us at any point, and this is science, are really touching anything. There's a buffer of energy in between everything, but we have the perception that we're touching it. So we're actually tuning into the reality of us floating on an energetic sphere on a continuous basis. And the receptivity, when we have that awareness, becomes something really fun to play with. And it just feels amazing. It brings us back into balance. And when we're in balance with ourselves, we find that the outside world meets us in that balance also. Or we can meet anywhere where this harmony or a lack of balance in a place where we actually get to be conduits that allow those waves that are going back and forth to find a place of stillness as well and calm themselves. So it's a beautiful practice. And that one I highly recommend. It's one of my favorite ones.
That is a big yes for me too, John. And thank you for distinguishing the difference between stillness and meditation. I think a lot of people think that the two are the same, and they'll say, oh, I have, trouble meditating. It's like, no, you don't need, if you can get into that stillness, like just talking about it, my whole body like buzzes up. Like for me, I can go into nature in 5 minutes and find that stillness. And, if you feel off balance, do it several times a day, just right when you feel that need. And it is so true that that energy for me, it mirrors right back to me when I get into that. And I don't know, I'm feeling more and more of that more recently, where I'll go like, woo, this is a nice wave. And you start to crave it. Right. You don't get into, okay. And it was a discipline. It's a skill set, learning that, but find the stillness that like means something to you. I have this beautiful shrine near me that has a lake that I just go there and sit there and it feels like someone's a waterfall of love is pouring through me. And I'm like, woo, I have no idea what this is, but it feels great. And then I really feel like I carry that bubble with me everywhere I go when I leave.